Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to ZeldaSpeedRuns and welcome to the OoT Item Randomizer Standard Tournament Season 4. It's our final day of the tournament. It's the final day of the season, and since this is the grand final and the last match of the tournament, we have something special for you. Today, for the first time ever, Emo Soda and our Great Ape will deliver the Gossip Stone podcast, but live. We're gonna do a special season 4 tournament hype up for the grand final, a quick recap, and how we got here. And hey, you all don't want to listen to me. You want to listen to the guys. So I give it over to both Chimp and Emo. So take it away.
Hello and welcome to the Gossip Stone podcast live. Hello. Hi, chat. How's it going? If you haven't heard us before, we are the Ocarina of Time Randomizer podcast, and we focus primarily on racing the competitive scene, but also cover various other related topics for the community as a whole. Hello, I'm Emo Soda. This is my face. That's what I look like. That's Chimp. Hey, what's up?
Hello. I've never been called a Great Ape before. That's probably my favorite nickname ever. I'm going to stick with that one. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all hype for the Season 4 Grand Finals Game 2/3. I know we are, and we're very excited to bring you this very special live episode.
Yep. And we're going to be talking a little bit about the history of how we got here in the Season 4 tournaments, and as well as a recap of the first two races between our finalists, the one and only, the Salty Sponge, and What the Hell's Happened. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it only feels like... I'm not sure how you feel, Emo, but for me, this season has sort of flown by in a way. It only feels like we were talking about like the news settings and the qualifiers quite recently, and all of a sudden we're here with our finalists. It's pretty wild. I'm not sure if that's just an effect of this year on everyone. People's psyches have been broken down and we're still in last March.
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple months for the tournament. I mean, I feel like that's it's the fastest tournament we've had so far for ZSR.
Yeah, I think it's been well organized. I think the addition of like a more structured way of organizing matches this season has helped to sort of make it progress continuously. I know the first week of qualifiers, the bracket matches was insane because every single person was on a 10-day limit. So we had 10 matches in 4 days or something crazy like that. And then, thankfully it's just nicely continued. And all the way up until April 10th. And we have our last match.
Yeah, it's been really nice overall. I mean, I think it's been pretty fast paced too. Like you're saying, like the couple weeks there, it was just like, I don't know, 2 matches. It felt like a day sometimes, and it's a lot of content to cover. But it's also great for all the viewers at home. So I'm sure everyone is pretty appreciative of the speed of the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
But so the actual qualifiers, I mean, they started in December last year, 2020. Anyone remember 2020?
Yeah, after the great racetime.gg implosion of December 2020, we eventually got started a week later. December 12th was qualifier number 1 with I can't remember how many entrants, but it must have been like 160 in that first seed. It was wild.
Yeah, we had 302 people entered at least one qualifier for this tournament, and 276 finished at least one race as well. And I think top numbers were like 130, 140-ish or something like that. But we had that for multiple races versus just a couple tournaments ago. Even we were just like barely making over 100. Like that was considered pretty groundbreaking at the time. For numbers. So really, we've seen a growth of interest. It's been great to watch, and I think it's really the closing the skill gap. I think it's been like the number one story of the tournament. It's just been super close match after super close match, and it culminates in the Sponge. What the hell's game 2? So, what's to say, really? Yeah, 61 bracket matches. It's been great. The fastest seed was 137.03, Marco versus Keizo. The longest one was 358.18. Yikes. Reedrim versus Tompus, which is the origin of We Love Waterstone in all caps, with hover boots on Morpho, which is great. It's a
What
good meme.
beautiful meme to introduce to the world. We love Waterstone. We love hovers on Dark Link. And ever since that, I think we must have seen 3 to 4 different times where Dark Link has genuinely had something. So it's not just a meme; it's just genuine truth. But yeah, that Reedrim Tom Poos was a long one because I think it was like straight after Marco versus Gavaroni, which was also like 355 or something wild like that, which was still to this day probably the worst seed I've ever seen in my entire life. So season 4 has had some spicy meatballs.
Now we should probably introduce the two runners that are going to be on today for the grand finals game 2. First up is What the Hell's Happened. No stranger to the podcast. I mean, we've had him on a couple times at least. He's been a speedrunner for Ocarina of Time since late 2013. Involved in Bingo, Beta Quest, and OCS as an organizer for the first 2 seasons. Rando history here. Runner-up season 1, runner-up season 2, 4th place season 3. SGL winner in 2019. Made it to the brackets within the co-op tournament. Is the reigning RSL king. For now. But
they've got the double crown 2 in a row, but I know one particular person that's named after a beverage that is after their title this year, so we'll see how they fare in RSL season 3. But yeah, a solid history of since Rando started, as you say, runner-up twice. There was a bit of a what the hell's meme. I'm sure they won't mind me saying that. There was a bit of a what the hell's second? That's pretty standard. And it wasn't until they eventually won SGL Live that the duck was broken. They were officially allowed to win things now, and yeah, we might see them win today, or they might just repeat history and come second again.
Yeah, his path through the tournament's been pretty exciting to watch. He's just been shutting out opponents left and right. It doesn't matter really who it is either. I mean, it's been a couple of the matches were really close too, though. I mean, round 1, Reedrim, first seed versus 32nd seed. It was just textbook slammer. Just God routes the seed. All right, vanilla bomb bag. That was pretty exciting. Way of the Hero Lens on Shoot the Sun just to troll him a little bit. There was a past tournament in which Lens was also there. It was for Hammer and Treasure House game. Augury of Time was for Storms, for Oops AD, for Lights and Bomb the Well. It's just really wholesome stuff in season 4. Round 2 against Riley, great runner. A bomb bag in a river grotto that locked basically the entire seed. Required items in Stone Jabu and Stone Water. And What the Hell's also skipped Deep Fire, so he dodged a Strength 3, which is total bait. Great to see. Round 3 against Fanta Tanked. Yet another We Love Waterstone seed. Kakuri Sword on the torches this time, not Dark Link, surprisingly. What the Hell's was probably a little bit more thorough in the early and the mid game, which saved a lot of time when looking for that one last item. And round 4 against Ryukane, also just been a killer in the tournament. I mean, Fanta Tanked, Ryukane, Riley, just having that like kind of murderer's row of opponents is really scary to see. But I mean, what the hell is he was up to the task, and he's been shutting people out left and right. And the entire seed it ended up being pretty linear for the Ryukane matchup. Everything What the Hell's did ended up being required. Shocker. I mean,
yeah, what the hell's rushing progression and just god seeding? Nah, never heard of that one before.
Yeah, I would say his final opponent is Sponge here, but the runner-up has definitely been Zora's Domain. I mean, his boomer strats have been a wonder to watch. It's great seeing him grow, too, as a player. I mean, it's only, a couple days ago that he's mastered the ideal strats for Zora's Domain, so that's great to see.
Yeah, only yesterday we got those brand new strats, I say in air quotes. Because a lovely reveal. I know Fanta Tanked in particular popped off. So yeah, that was you can teach an old dog new tricks, it seems.
Yeah, you totally can. I mean, that goes for anyone, really. I don't think it's unique or only for specific runners. I think anyone can improve that much in Randomizer and be this dominant too. It really just takes calm attitude, being really hopeful, and then just getting partly lucky, but also it's the trinity of skill, luck, and whatever the third one was, I forget. But
good trinity.
It's whatever I usually say. It's whatever I usually say. But yeah, the losers final was against PKR after getting swatted down by Sponge in the winners final. And that one was an AD for Requiem to get strength 2 from Child Spirit. Also had to go to Colossus to get Saria Songa for strength 1 on Skull Kid. That's kind of mean.
Beautiful.
But yeah, the required Wasteland Crossing, just great. And Jim, do you want to talk a little bit about Sponge and
Absolutely.
how he got here?
Yeah, so that brings us into the Salty Sponge, hashtag Jimbo69. Obviously, a well-known runner in the community, of course. Start playing Ocarina of Time at the end of Season 2, Spring 2019. The history, Season 3, they were 14th seed. Went 1 and 2 overall, so not the best in Season 3, but I think they were up and coming at that point. Multi-world tournament winner with Namaha and Riley, so immediately got something to their name. Co-op tournament top 4 with Namaha, managed to ditch Riley, and clearly it didn't pay off for them, so props to Riley for carrying the multi-world team, I say. And Speed Gaming Live 2020 winners, so we have our SGL 19 versus SGL 20 winner. So that is an extra level of POG. Of course, they spent all the prize money on McDonald's, as we know. But Sponges path through this tournament. First round versus Casey Necro, a particularly hype match. I know there was a ton of excitement for that one. Way the Hero Zora Tunic, which is a personal favorite, with Stonewater and Hover Boots on Dark Link. That was Necro's interview there was wonderful, to say the least. So unlucky for them. I think that was a really close match, honestly, but unfortunately, Necro didn't rush Dark Link, so it just falls on them, really. Always rush Dark Link these days. Also had Way the Hero Forest with Iron Boots and Prescription with the Boomerang on, bigger on, so yeah, Necro left without the Prescription on that one too, so just a couple of things that didn't go particularly well for them. But round 2 was Marco, so continuing their speed running through the French community, Marco was up next, and yeah, as we know that Sponge won that one, defeated the Season 2 champion with Din's Fire on Big Pose, which I think was the big crux for that one. There was some real logical shenanigans with Marco finding hovers in the well first and Sponge not finding them, which meant that he knew that certain things weren't required and weren't logical, which fast-forwarded to him finding Din's on Big Pose a little earlier. And yeah, that knocked Marco into the losers bracket, which I dare say not a lot of people saw coming, but that's
round
just Marco.
2.
Yeah, round 2.
It was only the second round that Benuru was also just taken completely out of the tournament.
Yeah, so. It was not the best season for French runners, but I'm sure I'll speak that one up. And Season 5 is just going to be a top 32 of French runners, just so they can pay everyone back. So we'll see about that. Yeah.
I don't think they're going away. So
no, absolutely not. But hey, maybe we'll see more English people. I know Fanta is probably chomping at the bit to get into Season 5. But anyway, round 3 versus Mr. Mario. Another pretty much every match Sponge had was really hype in terms of who they managed to go through on the way to the finals. What the hell? Not what the hell. Reading my acronyms wrong. Way of the Hero. Storms on Burning Cack behind Shadow, so it was up for Din's Fire. And nearly last location in the gold scale on Dampier Digging for Strength 2 on Lab Dive with Din's and Adult Spirit. Another really spicy, logical mess. That was
premiere season 4, right?
Yeah, it's just absolutely Season 4. When you think of Season 4, you've either got Marco versus who was it against, where he got that 137, or every other seed where there's just some logical nightmare, and we get a 3 to 4 hour needle in a haystack.
Have you felt like there's a lot of bait in Season 4 compared to the other tournament seasons?
Yes, but I think that's kind of natural because of the addition of Ganon's, I guess. With Ganon's castle being earlier, the bait is kind of always going to go up slightly because there is a new area, which wasn't in the previous season. So yeah, I'd say there's a little bit more bait. Obviously, if you find Kakuri Sword really late for Stone Deku, that can add to the bait as well. So yeah, I'd say there was. Strength 3 in particular is the sort of item which has probably led to the most bait, which doesn't waste a ton of time, but ultimately I think we have seen a few seeds where that has not really paid off for anyone, despite it being a really good find at the time. It's like, yes, Strength 3 light trial, let's go, and it's just like 7 blue peas and a piece of heart, and you're feeling really sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, into round 4 versus Pink Kitty Rose. Again, nothing but hype matches for Sponge throughout the brackets. Hinted Bow on Skull Mask, but there was another one on Talented Chickens. I believe PKR rushed the Skull Mask bow, and then Sponge ended up avoiding that one because of chickens. Sponge went well before Lost Woods and Kakuri Forest and found the Kakuri Sword doing Stone Deku, which meant that the boomerang was in there for Medallion Jabu. So that really set off their opening route because they did it the way they did. PKR couldn't really go back to Deku Tree in a decent time frame when they found that, so it was a little bit harder for them to sort of route everything in. But no, Sponge had an excellent early game for that seed. Routed it really well. Logically required to beat the Gerudo guards as child, which was fantastic. When everyone realized that on the stream, we're like, wait a minute. Yes, it's happened. Season 4 has given us essentially every logical quirk I can think of, with the exception of skipping Nocturne, I think.
I'm not 100% on that. I feel like I've seen that before for sure. I definitely played a seed that was like that, but obviously I'm not in the tournament, but I don't know. I'm like 95% sure that at least one of the matches had that, but that might have just been like a pickup race. I mean, there's been so many more matches and just races in general that have been happening every single day since the tournament started, and even before. There's been a lot of community interest and testing a lot of the settings that got to where we are right now, and I think really it's paid off in a great way. We're in just a really good spot settings wise. I think there's only really a couple things that I would change outside of that, but I mean, we're talking like hundreds. I mean, at this point we're probably over 500 races on season 4 settings, something like that. It's just a pretty conservative guess. I mean, I wanted to say 1,000, but I don't know if we've quite gotten there in terms of reps, but I'm pretty sure we're close as a community at the very least. But yeah, just a ton of community involvement. So just shout outs to all the racers that have been getting us to this point. I think without all the reps and grinds and stuff that everyone's done, we wouldn't be here. I mean, we'd still no free ZL, things like that. So it's definitely been the number one altering setting the tournament by far, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have really enjoyed Free ZL, which is a good time, if any, to shout out to the devs who were really, really helpful in sort of bringing a few requests to the forefront, getting a few things in that we can test and try. And I think Free ZL was one that they really sort of fast forwarded, and it ended up being, I think, a universally enjoyed setting. There might be a few people that don't like it, which is fair enough, but most, if not everyone, enjoyed Free ZL as a setting. It really just fast forwarded that opener. And yeah, like you said, thank you to the racers and everyone that sort of embraced the settings, because there could have just easily been everyone be like, nope, not interested, no season 4 for me. But everyone embraced it, and even though there are a few things to change, and there definitely can be improvements, I think because of the way that the community did embrace season 4, it means that in the future, a few changes, don't be scared that there might be a couple of changes in which overall benefit the race scene. So we'll see what that happens with season 5. And of course, I see Rob Dog there saying, "Bring back the guards." I knew there was 1 or 2 people that didn't like Free ZL, but there we are.
Personally, I'm really hoping for One Hit KO to make its premiere debut with season 5. So we'll see if that actually happens. But
I mean, 100% One Hit KO has essentially already debuted in RSL season 3, so you can't really escape that.
No, not like this. Seems like every seed now is 1 KO.
Yeah. 5% my ass. Anyway, that brings us into the winners finals, which is the first match we'll properly break down between Sponge and What the Hell's Happened. Of course, they both went into this match undefeated. They went through all the winners bracket, of course, as the winners finals. So we knew that someone had to lose this. They weren't necessarily going to be out of the tournament, but someone was going to lose their really impressive winning streak up to this point. And Emo, do you want to get a start?
Yeah, the match happened just yesterday, Friday, March 9th?
Winners finals.
Yeah, it was a good race to watch. I mean, really, I'm just like stuck at work and staring at a wall. So it was great to have this entertainment for about 3 hours, a little bit under, but including interview and all that. It was great. So, actually, 1 second here. Hey, which match did you actually want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about the winners final or the one that happened yesterday?
Winners finals.
Winners. Okay. So March 19th. Got it.
So yesterday, but a month ago.
Yeah. I mean, almost a week or two shy. But anyway, this one was a Child Stone Saria song start with Child Spawn at DMT Summit. It's like not the best place to start. Kind of out of the way. It takes not even a quick jaunter. It's just a walk, even just to get to CAC. And if you want to do chickens at the very start, I mean, that's okay as a start as things go. But if you want to go to adult or go to your songs, like you might not even have time of day to go to opponents at that point. So we're kind of really close if you're like waffling a little bit in your decision making. So just DMT Summit as Child Spawn start. It's just not where you want to be, especially with no warp song either. It's just like pretty loose. But what the hell is he found a hookshot on the Zora diving game in his child one. Sponge went adult without that hookshot, and he found a hint that Skull Mask was the other hookshot. So already this early in the seed, we already knew where Longshot was, and it's not necessarily relevant. Water was a stone in this one, as it always is. 25-minute difference in getting the hook shots. What the hell's got his at 27 minutes, and Sponge got his at 53 minutes. I believe that was just for a hook shot, not the same one, right?
Yeah, I don't think either of them had long shot for a little while, but I remember at the time when we were going through that match, there was a big feeling of sort of bailout on Sponge's side there when they found the hint in. I think it was Medigoron. They found the hint with the Skull Mask being a hook shot, and we were like, "Oh my god!" Because we weren't sure if they were going to get the diving game hook shot for a while, because it's not the easiest hook shot to find. But knowing where that was super helpful and a little bit of a bailout for Sponge for sure.
Yeah, Domain's also one of those areas that I feel like everyone loves to skip because it's not necessarily the fastest. It's not super duper efficient. It's kind of out there. It's like a slightly better Haunted Wasteland almost. Like it takes about the same amount of time depending on where you are to go upriver if you don't have scale, especially. So I wasn't even sure if they were going to get that one, really. Like I was just kind of looking at it, I was like, they're really going to go Domain? Like what's really drawing them there, right? I mean, you have Jabu being a stone too. Like you have all these runners that really want to one trip all these areas if possible. Like, and it even goes to a degree of like Ganon's Castle, like trying to one trip that in the seed. That's including like your final dip, possibly too. Really just seeing like a, I don't know what do you call it, crystallization. Just a real rush to this one trip kind of phenomenon. Which, I mean, for good reason. You don't want to go to an area 5 times in the game and waste several minutes going to and from. So, I mean, if your opponent has to do that and you one trip it, you're already saving a couple minutes, especially in a 1v1 setting. So, makes a lot of sense. It's kind of where I was coming from with that one. But Mido's house had a bow and a strength was on adult shooting gallery. And Forest was way the hero. So, of course, they rushed it. Forest strength 2 on Phantom Ganon. What the Hell's had a 2.5 minute lead at that point. So they both went to the desert to chase strength 2 way the hero. There was literally nothing in Spirit, but they didn't have any explosives to get past the BMOS either. So they reversed to G2G and they found the bomb bag on the fortress rooftop. Kind of a convenient place. At least it wasn't in like stone water or something like that, right? So What the Hells went to beat DC. He also dipped fire. Sponge stayed in the area and cleared G2G, and he found Din's fire in the G2G Wolfos room. Good find, especially for Shadow Medallion. And Hammer and Strength 3 were in Shadow, and Strength 3 was not locked by Strength 2. This is really good for Sponge because he had a 6-minute lead beating Shadow, 145 versus 151 for What the Hells, and What the Hells had finished DC and dipped fire at that point. By the time Sponge caught up on that, What the Hells finished Shadow, and the two of them were perfectly in sync in fire, basically frame for frame on Volvagia, starting that fight. Sponge had a very clean Volvagia, so that didn't really matter. But What the Hells had like a maybe 30-second time loss. I think he got Trollhold or he missed a bomb or something like that. So he fell a little bit behind there, even though he was 2.5 minutes up. Not too much prior to that. They followed Strength Way the Hero and found Rudo's Letter and Light Trial. All right, so you're telling me Strength 3 is in Shadow, not locked by Strength 2 on Way the Hero Forest, and your first strength was the Adult Shooting Gallery after getting the free bow and Mitos. So not the worst in terms of timing. I think they got that under like 2 hours or something like that. It was pretty close to that.
Yeah, half the seed at that point was just looping in all of those items, and again, the sort of rush to get those explosive off Fortress. So I don't think they could have really pushed out any harder than they did. So they did find it both at sort of a good time.
Yeah, for sure. And I think at that point, What the Hell is he left to beat Jabu while Sponge climbed the tower, including finding the Iron Knuckles to place FW. For that specific play, I've been kind of like, it's like a kind of an I don't care play for me. It's just like I don't get fighting the Iron Knuckles that quickly, right? Because you're gonna have to fight him anyway, right?
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
why not just do him later?
I guess it kind of depends on if you can get any more use out of Furor's Wind. Like, if you think you've got a little bit left and you're like, right, I could place Furor's Wind here, or I could, because you've got to go back to Temple of Time regardless. So you could place it here, or am I going to get much value out of this as child when I go back to Jabu? Am I going to get anything else as adult? Because they didn't have light arrows at this point, so there could have been a better place to have it. But I think it was fine. Ultimately, it did work out for Sponge. But yeah, I think it just really depends on what you got left. Typically, if I've got 1 or 2 dungeons to do, and maybe one of those is Shadow, for example, I'd probably not use it because I'd use it in those temples instead. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Jabu was their last medallion, so they went back to Ganon's castle afterwards for the light arrow hint. And Ganon said bomb of the well. Sponge still had a 30-second lead, so they both go to Ice Cavern first to get storms, and then it came down to routing and well.
Oh boy, did it come down to routing in the well. This was insanity. Absolutely everyone was popping off during this bottom of the well play. It was incredible.
Yeah, Sponge played his entire route around doing Dead Hand first. So going so far as to place FW in the central area so they could return to the main floor after checking the basement chest. And so, except he used his only key to open the door to one of the skull rooms in the center to set that as his return point for FW. So he had to go find another key before he could do the lock bits. He ended up using Furor's Wind to check the invisible chest in Dead Hand's room and escape without fighting Dead Hand, which is pretty cool.
Risky. I appreciate the risk of that one. As soon as he left, I was like, no way, because What the Hells was pretty much approaching Dead Hand at that point, so pretty wild.
Yeah.
The spiciest bottom of the well routing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I feel like Sponge is just a lot more likely to do a lot higher risk plays, but I mean, he knows the risk at the same time. It's not like he's rushing chickens at the start of the seed or setting something like in his mind and then just like going for it. It's not necessarily that. It's always the weighing of the risk, right? So It's been great to see because it's very exciting to watch risky plays and when they pay out too. It's great to watch. So, What the Hell's followed a more traditional route, was fighting Dead Hand as Sponge was falling into the basement. So between those two checks, one had to be a key and the other would be the light arrow. So whichever location that had the light arrows would determine the winner, which is exciting finish to say the least. I mean, we knew it was going to be close, right? Their paths to get here were pretty solid, I would say. They both killed off a lot of great runners, for lack of a better term.
The fact that they were both fighting Volvagia at the same time, with essentially the same items and the same stuff left to do, like, oh boy, we've got Marco and Bono round 3. Let's go. Let's see how close this ends up getting. And yeah, the fact that it all essentially came down to well routing was absolutely bonkers. Sponge deciding to gamble and decide not to do Dead Hand and just go straight to the basement from there instead was crazy. But it paid off, I think it was a really high risk, high reward play, and yeah, the high reward eventually led to Sponge winning. So yeah, you can't argue against it. I wouldn't necessarily say go and try it yourself, but it paid off.
Yeah, What the Hells was starting Ganon when Sponge finished, so it's kind of one of the worst feelings, right? Other than being on like the final cutscene and then you see your opponent finish. So at least it wasn't that for What the Hell's here, but still super close finish. And so Sponge moved on to Grand Finals, basically waited 2 or 3 weeks and just kind of chilled out for a while. Whereas What the Hell's he moved down to Losers Finals and had to beat PKR to make it into Grand Finals. And well, I mean, spoiler alert, I guess. I mean, he did that, but
yeah, something tells me he did it. Yeah.
Thursday, April 1st, losers final against PKR and What the Hells. This one was also a pretty close matchup. The Child Medallion Prelude starts a little bit better than the Sponge What the Hells matchup. And it starts in Kakariko from Adult Archery, so it much better, much more centrally located. You're not in the middle of nowhere. You don't have to, I don't know, take a taxi to get to Ganon's or whatever. So that's great to see, right?
Yeah.
PKR.
No.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I was just going to say nothing wrong with that spawn. It's a nice place to land.
Yeah. So PKR lost to Sponge. So they both lost to Sponge. PKR 1 round sooner in the winner semifinals and had to beat Fandatanked and Ryukane to earn a spot in the losers final against What the Hells. So this one was early explosives for once, right? 20 pack of chews from the man on roof. Okay, so very early on. I think both runners got it basically when they spawned, right?
Pretty much straight away.
And then there's also Bomb Lock Bomb Bag in the SFM Wolfos Grotto. All right. So a lot of explosives early on. Basically 40 chews. It's how I kind of determine it. Because whenever I see a 10 pack of chews, I just see, oh, okay, here's your bomb bag. Just ignore where bomb bag is for a second. Unless you have like market way to hear it right. You can just, unless you're just in a really bad spot or you don't have roar, kind of like that kind of a thing. Feel like just safe scumming your chews and just being really careful with them is almost as good as a bomb bag in these settings.
Yeah. It's quite rare that you'll find 20 chews and run out, because typically once you've used all 20, you've either found a bomb bag, you've found more chews, or a wallet, or some other way of getting you more chews. So it is quite rare that you're like, oh my god, I've got 1 chew left, I'm 2 hours deep, no bomb bags, no extra explosives. We have seen these seeds. But as long as you use them sensibly, you don't go and smash like 9 of them in Dodongo Cavern and miss the eyes like 3 or 4 times. You should be relatively fine with that.
Point of revision here. Yoshi in the chat, who will be joining us for the match commentary in just a bit. But there's so many matches happening in Season 4. It's hard to keep them all straight sometimes, but actually, one of the biggest differences in this match was What the Hells. You got to choose as Child, but PKR, she went back there as adult only. So,
because I think the prelude start meant that PKR just played prelude, got the hints, went adult, and essentially just went and did Kakariko anyway, just as an adult instead. So there's a little bit of time between the two, but
I've been kind of torn on that, like as a strat, right? Like I don't know sometimes if you should just play the song immediately or depending on where you are, because it also depends on if you're on Virtual Console or if you're on emulator, right? Like, what if your spawn is, I don't know, like fields, like valley to field or something like that, or for field to valley, for even for that matter. If you're there and you have like Bolero as the start and your child, it's like, well, I can't immediately check this now. Or what if it's like Requiem, right? Like, do you go and check that, or do you save that for your time of day routing potentially? Like, that's a pretty good tool, right? So I've always been kind of torn on that. Like with Prelude Start, I think PKR is definitely a player that really likes the adult one section. I've just seen that time and time again in their matches that they go early adult pretty much every time, or at least from what I can tell.
Yeah.
Whereas What the Hell is definitely a child route player. Like a lot like me, a lot like a lot of players too. I don't know. I can't shake the child route for whatever reason. Just like rushing Lon, then just go Valley. It doesn't even matter. Then you go to Open Grotto and Field, then you go to Kakuri. You're in Midos around the 10-minute mark. Like, it's just really efficient. You get all these out of the way checks out of the way.
Yeah. I mean, with the benefit of Prelude, and obviously this instance was a good example, but in general, is if you start with Prelude, no matter where you are, you can immediately get 4 hints. You don't know what those hints are going to be. They might not be any good, but you can just go and get 4 hints straight away. So with Kakariko, skipping the checks and waiting for them as adult is fine, but ultimately you're never going to find a Kakariko Baron hint or anything like that. So it's like, well, you can safely do Kakariko and not be like, well, this might come up as foolish or something like that, unless you want to do chickens and you're sort of looking for that hint. If you start in somewhere like, as you say earlier, Valley or Domain or something like that, and you've got Prelude, you're like, right, I could do these checks. I could do Valley checks into Lake. I could do this Domain start down into River, or I could quickly go and read those hints, which might tell me that one of these areas is dead. So I'd say with Kakariko, I'd be less inclined to just immediately get out of there. But there's nothing wrong with that, because ultimately you can get a song and then come back as child with an extra song and maybe an extra child item. But yeah, when you're in a less favorable area, I definitely would play Prelude sort of immediately, and not potentially waste time doing those early checks.
As long as you're being like song centric about it and your routing, I think that's definitely the way to go. It's always kind of been the way to go. And Ocarina of Time Randomizer, I mean, songs are just so powerful in general. They open up a ton of checks, and a lot of time you need them anyway. So, but yeah, the child route it just adds so many checks. I think just base check per minute, I think it's just the way to go in most seeds. But of course, it depends on if you're a child or adult start. In this one, it was a child start, so I think it was a pretty clear option, at least for me. But I can totally get going adult at the same time, though, too. Like, if you find your adult items in Kakariko Graveyard, or if you find, like, Song of Storms and you just quickly go back child because you have Prelude, right? I think that can be really good, too. But it's totally seed-specific, and like, you can read a hint at Temple of Time that sends you in a completely different direction, for example, too. So I think that just keeping your options open, right, is definitely being fluid with your routing. I think is the way. Like, if you had to, like, gun to my head, like, how do you route Ocarina of Time Randomizer? It's definitely being fluid, being song based. Yeah, that's basically it. I don't know.
Yeah, songs for sure. Like, songs for me is just like ultra powerful. And if you route around songs and you just get items around songs for at least the first half an hour. But yeah, I think most people have the same opinion, to be fair.
Yeah, and so in this match, you see where it was here. But yeah, they both ended up running into a bow. PKR found one on top of DC, which is a great find. And What the Hell's found the other 2 in Deku, with the Kakuri Sword on Hot Rod or Goron as well. Stone DC had both a hookshot and the boomerang. That's a lot of things, especially early on in the seed. Really just kind of pays off for both runners, right? As long as you don't spend too much time as child or too much time as adult, that your opponent kind of catches up. That's what I want to say. Really, it's just as long as you're not leaking time here and there. Great to find both of those items, and especially with Stone DC. I don't think for these two runners specifically. I don't think they like avoid Stone DC at all or anything like that. I think a lot of people have been pretty much pro Dodongo's Cavern for the most part. Even if it is a stone, it doesn't. Just too good of a location, especially with Deku being closed now. What do you think about DC?
Yeah, I agree. It's too many checks. It takes 8 minutes max if you're collecting everything. There's literally nothing wrong with going to DC stone or not. If you have those explosives, the only way I'd probably avoid it is if I had such a clear path of different progression. If I had the items to do forest and forest was way the hero, that led me to something else, then sort of near the end of the game, I've got like 3 or 4 different choices, maybe. But start of the seed, if I start with explosives, no matter what Dodongo's Cavern is, unless I find a Baron, I go to Dodongo's Cavern. And, I know people are being big memeing over people saying that Stone DC is a risk, but ultimately it's not. And I think everyone's going to be comfortable going to DC early and genuinely pays out.
Well, especially with like you're saying, the early explosives this seed too. Even if the bomb lock or the bomb bag was bomb locked in SFM, I mean, you have the very early 20 pack of chews, basically Spear Zero, right? So the bomb bag is going to be somewhere out there, very accessible, because otherwise the chews would be in logic, hilariously. So it's kind of always in the back of my mind when I see that. So like something like this that's bomb locked, that doesn't really matter if it's out of logic this early in the seed. So I totally agree there. So PKR dipped fire without hammer and then later found the hammer on the river lower freestanding item. Used a pretty cool jump you can do down there to get there as adult. There's a couple different setups you can use, but I think the one that we saw was the one where you like kind of jump on the pillars and then just do like an ESS or something and get up there. But PKR was still on adult 1, so opted to return child at this point. No Bolero and hadn't set Scarecrow's child yet, so it makes a lot of sense to return. When What the Hell's found the hammer, he went straight back to fire, minus a short detour to confirm the Scarecrow song first, but the fire BK was on Pierre. What the Hell's opted to full clear fire at that point and found magic on the highest Goron. Okay. And still no strength, though, so it was out of logic. Just literally no strength at this point. It's kind of weird. BKR was about 12 minutes on finishing fire, so 112 versus 124 between the two players. They both synced up checking the first 2 checks in Shadow before heading to Way of the Hero, Stone Water. When is that ever hinted Way of the Hero, right?
And guess what we found in Way of the Hero, Stone Water? Of course, it was hover boots on Dark. Of course it was. At least we knew. At least there was a pointing us to Water Temple this time. But obviously, we can't finish Season 4 without some Clown Fiesta, Dark Link having hover boots special. So yeah, there it was. Everyone was happy. Everyone knew it was going to be there, and lo and behold, we picked that up. So phenomenal. We love Waterstone. True Season 4 meme.
I hate water, man. Fuck water.
The problem is that I think Dark Link's had hovers like 3-4 times in this tournament. Doing water without hovers absolutely sucks. So just the fact that Dark Link has them and you need to do essentially what is the rest of the temple to get them sucks even more. Like, it just couldn't be a more compounding suck on suck. It's just terrible.
Wow, suck on suck. Yeah, that's
right.
But
I've killed him. I've done it.
Killed me, dude. You're killing me. Yeah, it's just like 4 items. Actually dying. No, Water Temple is just like 4 items, like on these settings too, with no not skull sanity. I guess skull sanity or key sanity, like or key like just all of these items or settings that make water better, but it makes all the dungeons better too. So like even if you change the settings, water would still be the worst option, right?
Yep.
So it just there always has to be a worst option, so it's fine. It's whatever. I'm not upset about it or anything, but man, fuck water. I just hate water so much.
Not upset, but also fuck water.
Yeah, so after getting the Dark Link cover boots, What the Hells went straight back to Shadow. PKR stayed behind to find the last item in water first. It's Way of the Hero. You want to make sure it's water. It's season 4. It makes sense, whatever. Finishing Shadow, just 2 minutes apart. 151 versus 153. What the Hells was ahead here. In GTG, Ruda's letter was on the right side of the GTG maze. Okay. And this meant Colossus Way of the Hero couldn't just be for forest access. Minuet and Saris were on Colossus and Ice, respectively. So, What the Hells continued in GTG and found the lens in the Stalfos room and the long shot in the left side of the maze. Colossus access was in logic by completing a DC Water Jabu, and crossing the wasteland was out of logic because magic was still out of logic. So, they crossed the wasteland and got Saria's song, which led to strength 1 on Skull Kid. This late into the seed. It's like 2.5 hours almost. Great to see. Kind of amazing logic cluster. They were finally able to complete Forest and found the Mirror Shield on Phantom Ganon of all places. So really top tier locations for these items. Just really just all sides of the map. Going from basically LA to New York to Uganda, so just your classic.
That's my typical pop
kind of a route. Yeah, so What the Hells had a 5-minute lead, 231 versus 236, and then they found nothing in ice, nothing in all the random overworld checks in the whole game. So it came down to the point where the best play for both of them was to do all dungeons for Requiem. Doing all dungeons meant beating Baron Stone Jabu as well. They both picked up Requiem, then they went to Child Spirits. And sure enough, Strength 2 was on the Child Climb, which I think they needed Requiem for anyway, just due to key logic, right? They could have just skipped that, maybe.
I think it was. I want to say it was hard required to do this because Strength 3 was Strength 2 locked, so there was no. This was just utterly hard required.
Yeah, for sure. So they both picked up Requiem and went to Child Spirit, and sure enough, Strength 2 was on the Child Climb. Yeah, I said that already, right? So glitch in the Matrix. I said the same thing over again, but that's okay. Naturally, they found that Strength 3 was, like you're saying, Strength 2 locked, and that was basically the whole seed. At the very end here, it's about 4 minutes between the two runners, 332 versus 336, in What the Hell's favor. PKR was climbing Ganon's Tower when What the Hell's finished, so with this win, What the Hell's earned a rematch against Sponge in the Grand Finals, which was actually yesterday. I'm not getting my matches mixed up this time.
A month to the day after the Winners' Grand Finals, they meet again.
Yeah, did you catch this one, Jim? Were you there?
I did, yes. I was there throughout the whole thing. Very exciting. I think there was about 3.5 million channel points bet throughout this match, about 800 viewers, so there was a lot of excitement for this one.
Yeah, putting in my paltry 1,000 points, but I'm up to 4.3k now. Look at me go.
I've still got about 100,000, so it's all going today. I don't know who won yet, but it's all going today.
What was all the crazy bets that everyone made to get up into the 100,000s? I don't get it. Because I made one wrong move. I made a 50k bet on I think Bodzilla, and I just got destroyed. I think it was just too many eggs in one basket, I guess. But yeah, where did all people get all these points from? I don't.
Well, I went all in on What the Hell's being PKR, which gave me about 80,000 extra points. So yeah, I was pretty happy with that one. And I lost a load yesterday, thinking the Sponge would win. So
I guess it helps to not summon Trez when he's sleeping. So I really only have myself to blame to punt off my points through the channel. But yeah. Anyway. So this match, What the Hell's in Sponge, Game 1, Adult Medallion Saria's start. Man, are we sure we're covering the right match here? I feel like, yeah, for sure. It was Child Stone Saria's start for their first match in the winners final. So Shades of that with a different outcome, but the child spawn this time was at no. Adult spawn. Still though, sorry, is like not the best in the world to start with, right?
Yeah, not ideal.
Their adult spawn was in treasure chest game, so that's pretty cool. It's basically just just like a variant on Temple of Time Start. It's basically the same thing for all intents and purposes.
It could have led to some nice logical shenanigans of requiring to do the treasure chest minigame as adult. But the very first hint we read was treasure chest minigame is dead, so that completely blew that out.
Yeah, at the same time though, like Saria's and you're adult already, really incentivized to go to CAC Graveyard, which makes a lot of sense to me. And you already have Saria, so you could even just go get the song in SFM. It's completely in logic. I think I would be a little bit more likely to go do that, especially as adult. And if you can find like a strength or a bow or a bomb bag, you can just really string a lot of the checks along together. And DMT and the Goron City through the shortcut to Lost Woods. I just love taking that shortcut. It's just so good. So good. You open up as child, even if you open it up as adult, like it makes no sense, right? You go back 7 years for something that you did in the future. But it works out in a randomizer. It's cool. Going to Mitos, going to SFM, and maybe if you get a hook shot at that point, you can go into Forest and just dip it real quick. Can be really good for your skull routing doing that. And if you get bow, for instance, if you get any key in the first 2 checks in Forest, it's still a lot of checks that you can just do right off the bat. So for this one, early hint, Skull Mask was the Kakuri Sword, and they both got that during their child first trip.
If I remember, I think What the Hell's got that very quickly, but it actually took Sponge a little while to find that. So that's. I can't remember where that hint was. The Nocturne Warp Pad, I think, was. Yeah, so I think What the Hell's played that earlier to go and do Dampe digging, but it took Sponge a little while to find that hint. So What the Hell's had essentially an immediate advantage after for sort of 10 minutes.
It's amazing. It's not even like Upper River hint. It's not like one of these like classically ignored hints, like Second Castle, Back Lake, all these just like very out of the way places, more or less, and things that we've seen in this tournament really just spell doom for some of the runners. Man, I just thoughts back to that 50 skull hint on Top River, right? Which is so hard to see.
Probably my favorite 5 minutes of any seed ever was just watching Say skip the hint, fall down, roll next to the hint, not read the hint, and climb back up.
No, he fell down like 2 or 3 times even. And so like the French restream was losing their minds. They're like, dude, just fall. Yeah, he fell. Awesome. Great. Yeah. Oh, no, he's not reading it. No, he's just going into domain. No, he's going to Ice Cavern. No, that's not what you want to see.
They went out of their way to read every other hint after that as well. I think they just forgot about
that. They full cleared the whole entire seed. I mean, they would have been incredible. At any point if they read that hint, I think they just win that match. So like yeah, a lot of anguish for sure from chat and everyone else watching that one, but not so much the case in this one. But still, though, big advantage getting that as an early hint. Really can string along a lot of things to put yourself ahead in the child section. You can even do a lot of things that are on the way, and kind of like we were saying earlier. That's why I think the child route is just so good in the early game. You can get all these out of the way checks, and if you already know something like Skull Mask is 100% required, yeah, you can just I don't know, go into Child Goron City, for instance. You could go to I don't know, Valley. I like Valley. Valley's my nice safe space.
Yeah, Valley's
right. Anyway, Way the Hero Storms and Lon led to Strength 1 in Kakuri Storm's Grotto. Pretty centrally located, especially if you're going to go on the way to Skull Mask for Kakuri Sword. Both runners, they went back adult to check the Dongo's Cavern with Strength, and they found a hookshot on the DC Compass chest. Okay. So again, we're seeing just DC payout time and time again. Makes a lot of sense. Great location. Really efficient in terms of checks. doesn't really matter if it's a stone or a medallion. In this one, it was a stone again, just a note there. But with that plus bow from Child Shooting Gallery, forest was completable. Also, the forest medallion. It's pretty boring. They found their first bomb bag on the blue pole, which is, I think it's a compass chest, and they Sponge. He had an 8-minute lead at this point at the end of forest, 105 versus 113. They still did not have Zelda's Lullaby. They still they both went back to Temple of Time, and they only found Minuet on Prelude. So at that point, you're just kind of like hands in your head. You're just like, where is this CL, dude? It can only really be one place. It has to be at Colossus.
Gotta trek that desert. Gotta pick up ZL. And typically, when ZL is one of those last locations, it's like, oh, I need to cross. God damn it, we're gonna have to cross. And no one likes crossing the desert. It takes about 5 minutes, and it sucks.
There's no enjoyable part about it, I would say, even because you know that lens is required for it. So these settings, it's not so bad. Others, it could get more or less punished. And if you have something like Requiem on OoT, which was the case in this seed, it's really just a question of, okay, what are my stones? DC, Jabu, water, like, okay, like DC and water, like pretty fast. Then you have Jabu, a 2-item cluster of things that you have to go do to even get Requiem in the first place. So at that point, crossing Wasteland gets a little bit more attractive as an option, I would say. I don't know. What do you think about that? Like, when you know ZL's at Colossus, that's one thing, but when you have like a 2-item dungeon that's locking Requiem in the first place, would you rather cross the Wasteland store, or would you rather, like, if the items dropped from the sky and you were just like maybe even starting with them, would you still even go do it?
It's just such a tough one because Spirit Temple so often just burns you, and it's like, well, it's fine. Yeah. I've got strength. I've got Mirror Shield. Let's just rinse Spirit, and then all of a sudden the boss key's on Child's side. So it's. I don't think I will ever be able to consistently say what I do there, because sometimes you go to Spirit and it works, sometimes it doesn't. Typically it does. I'd say more often than not, you're going to cross the Wasteland and it pays off, not just gambling Requiem. So I'd say maybe like 6 out of 10 times we'd probably cross the Wasteland, but who knows?
Yeah. Kind of my thoughts exactly. I think it's more like, how many items are you away from go? How many items are you away from your next dungeon? Or what do you even have left at that point? I think can illuminate whether or not you should do that or not. But regardless, in this seed, they definitely both win for all dungeons. I think Sponge was a little bit more aggressive with it. He went to water first. We already knew it was stone, and I think Baron. Yeah, it was foolish, the seed. So primarily he did that to cut down a little bit on his stage change, which makes a lot of sense. You're trying to get all these advantages as much as you can. But I think that play specifically for me, I think that was a little bit too much. I think I liked What the Hell's approach a little bit better, in just terms of, I'm just going to go to Jabu first. I know it's not dead as an area. Then you can go to water. The age change doesn't really matter at that point. It's not enough time to really. I mean, I say this, but like when you're in the dark, like Sponge and What the Hell's in this 1v1, I don't know. At the same time, you have to just find any advantage you can. So I don't think either is necessarily a wrong play. I like the What the Hell's approach a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, What the Hell's approach paid off. You know, they decided to go to Jabu, and whilst doing Jabu, they went through. Just beforehand, they went through Adult Lost Woods, found Longshot and Magic, which helped them get ZL straight away instead of sort of taking the gamble on Water Temple. So yeah, it was pretty wild. Sponge went to found hovers on top of the lab, and we still knew that Goron City was Way of the Hero. So the hover boots were like, oh, maybe I can jump behind and see what's in the boulder maze, but no such luck. So something else was in Goron City. So Sponge went to check Hot Rodder, nothing there. But meanwhile, What the Hell's found Longshot Magic, collected ZL, and decided that it was time to head back to GTG. They did GTG before Wasteland with What the Hell's then heading into Child.
That's where we are. Okay. Yeah, all in all, though, I think the biggest things that made a difference in that match, What the Hell's checked the Lost Woods grottos and found Longshot and Magic. And that took a while for Sponge to get, I would say. And I think it was enough of a time gap that I think that was one of the main reasons that he lost. And he said that as much in the interview as well. I think those are really good analysis, even just like a couple minutes after the match ended, right? I mean, I guess for them it was like 15-20, but still, though, like knowing that was one of your biggest mistakes, I think that's a really good sign for Sponge. I think it's going to be close regardless today. But yeah, let's see. What else is to say about this match? You would say?
I mean, I think the other big deal, and like you mentioned earlier, What the Hell's decided that Jabu was the play. Sponge decided to do water first, and with doing Jabu first, we found Dins. So Dins was in Jabu, which was huge. The boomerang led us to Dins, which meant that instead of thinking about Water Temple anyway, you could just go do Shadow, which was huge. You found the hammer in Shadow. It's like, okay, like just finding all your items at that point. So doing Water first meant that Sponge essentially wasted time if there was nothing on Child Spirit. And the big thing for Sponge as well is that Sponge didn't get Mirror Shield, which was in the Composer Grave. What the Hell's end up finding that? I want to say after Goron City. Yeah, they did. They got Strength 2 on Spin and Pot, checked Composer Grave. Mirror Shield was there with Flame Storage, so that was huge for them. They essentially got the rest of Spirit. But ultimately, Sponge did Water, then went to do Jabu, found Dins, did Shadow, but didn't find the Mirror Shield, and then committed to sort of the rest of the AD play. And unfortunately, nothing was on Child Side Spirit, so the AD was a bit of a waste.
Yeah, even with all of those things taken into consideration, and it was still really close as a match. Like if Sponge had gotten the Mirror Shield any earlier, like he could have definitely won the seed, even doing Water before Jabu, with Shadow kind of being put off. So all in all, very exciting to watch. Light Airs were in Spirit, so they both just kind of ran into them at some point, and What the Hell's was in go mode at 252. And at that point, yeah, it's pretty much the match there. 306 versus 314, about a 7-minute difference between the two. So Sponge was in go mode. He was on the Twin Robo fight for the last Medallion when What the Hell's finished. So yeah, I mean, it's at least you're not on the final cutscene. That's what you want to be avoiding when you're a runner. So
we've seen that before in the final. We don't. I'd say we don't want it again. I want it again. The runners don't. The runners definitely don't want that again. But if today ends up coming down to a Ganon's cutscene, then I'm going to be over the moon.
Great.
So,
yeah, if it's that close the entire time, I think we're in for a hell of a match today for sure.
But yeah, that brings us, as you say, that brings us down to today. That brings us down to April 10th, the end of Season 4. And the Sponge versus What the Hell's Game 3. Of course, winners finals, even though it wasn't part of this best of 3, if you will, did count. So, yeah, this is the last match, the final chance for one of these runners to get the one-up over the other. So let's talk about today's match and a bit of some speculation we have. And Trez is mentioning, do you want to go over the stats? Bring up the stats. Let's bring up those stats, Trez. We can go over the sort of one-on-one competition between the two of them.
I like stats.
Stats is good. So as we can see, matchup statistics, What the Hell's has a 2/3 wins over Salty Sponge with 66.6%. You love it when stats fall down to those sorts of numbers, which is, ultimately is an indication of potential skill level, but you've got to remember that What the Hell's has been in the community for a lot longer, so some of those matches are going to be when Sponge was sort of starting out, as opposed to both of them coming into the scene at the same time. So there is a little bit of skew there, but it does, clearly shows that What the Hells is very experienced, has plenty of wins under their belt.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like we were saying earlier, the skill gap is closing with every single tournament that is going forward here. I think that's been more the case with Season 3, Season 4 than definitely earlier on in the randomizer kind of life cycle. So, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But still, though, that's 42 matches played between the two of them. That's a lot. Even if it wasn't a lot of the tournament seeds, you see them out on the streets every now and then. Standard planning channel in Discord, so not too surprising to see, I would say. Now, what is surprising, I guess, is the seed difference between the two is really only about 100-point difference, which was probably about enough of a difference season 3 to be maybe 1 or 2 places difference in seeding, right? But this is seed 1. What the hell is versus seed 11? So 11 seeds, only 100 points away. And I think I remember like the second or third page of standings for the qualifier points. Like it's like maybe 50, 100 points separating 32 runners, and they were all top 64. Like it's just like, okay. Really not a lot separating a lot of people. I mean, this could have been anybody in the matchup here today. So, but between these two runners here, yeah, I'd say the average time between the two of them is probably the most surprising thing that kind of jumps out to me. Like 2:43 for Sponge and 3:12 for What the Hells. I think there's just a natural variation with that, especially it's just in their last 10 races overall. So, I think for the seed specifically, what we're looking for, if What the Hells is going to win, you want something that's just 100%, right? You want to do everything in the entire seed. And then I think at that point, most people, I think, would say What the Hells would be ahead here. I think Sponge, I think, would also agree with me. But still, though, you can't really discount him out. I mean, it's been a really good execution, dark horse in the tournament, but powerhouse, really, for execution. As much as his routing has been on point, I think his execution's been great too. So overall, I think that's kind of what you're looking for What the Hells. For Sponge, you're looking for something that's super logically based, maybe something that's not 100% apparent, like on the surface here of the seed. So something that's like earlier on in the tournament, like he could find out where his strength 3, I think, was because of where the hovers were in that seed. So you're looking for something like that, kind of a scenario.
Yeah, I'd agree. And one thing that I'd say is a testament to Sponge at this point is you can see the races. What the Hell's overall race is 178. Sponge is 300. Despite being on the scene for way less time, Sponge has absolutely grinded the hell out of Ocarina of Time Randomizer, and it's an absolute testament to where they are. So, massive credit to Sponge for, as I say, grinding and really just pumping up their execution and getting as much experience and as much time sort of under the hood as possible. So, yeah, massive effort.
Now, having played each other twice, do we think either runner will change up their play style in response to either of the matches that they played against each other in this tournament? Yeah, what do you think about that?
I want to say no, solely because they've gone essentially. They are 1-1 in this finals now. I think obviously Sponge with their playstyle won the first game, but What the Hells with their playstyle won the second game. So the only thing that I can see, and this is something that Winnie has mentioned for us, is does What the Hells do chickens? I know chat are now mentioning chickens as well. Does What the Hells commit to doing chickens? I say yes, because if you all of a sudden commit to doing chickens the whole tournament, and in the very final race you don't do chickens, and it has something, you're never going to live it down. So I would say that just the chances of skipping it intentionally, if there's a good position to do so, obviously you might just be nowhere near child CAC, and you might find a hint or something like that. But if there is a position to do so early, What the Hells is going to do chickens. I'm very, very confident of that.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Fanta in chat here. I think it's going to be area based. It's going to be distance based. If he's next to the taco stand, he's going to buy a taco. I think that's just what it comes down to. If he's 10 miles away from the taco stand, he's not going to go to the taco stand, wait in line for 3 minutes. It's just not an appetizing check. So, yeah, we'll see what happens today. I think he's going to do chickens.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly don't think they're going to change what they've done. What the hell did take a couple of big gambles yesterday? I'm not sure how common that has been for what the hell's, like when they skipped the back of Shadow, for example, was really actually a really high risk for where they were. So I'm not sure if they're still going to take those sorts of gambles or not, but yeah, ultimately it worked for them yesterday, but there are situations where that absolutely destroys them. So I'll be interested to see the aggression from both of them today.
Yeah, I want to see something like some obscure extreme metagame call, like they both like, or like a gentleman's agreement. I'm cool with that too. I think we saw that in one match. I think it was the showcase between ATZ and Marco. I want to say it was season 3 start a while ago now, so I don't know if everyone remembers, but I think they both like rushed, I think, Skull Mask, and they both took the ladder down from the child spawn or something like that. Remember that?
I do remember that.
That happened, right? It's not just a fever dream or something.
That was definitely
season 2 showcase.
Yeah, that was definitely a time where, when you mentioned ATC and what that.
I want to see something like that. I want to see like they both like rush.
They both won 32 lens game.
Yeah.
Rush lens game, 1-32, it reset, completely wiped their safe line. That would be a.
I think Chad would implode at that point. I would implode. My face would implode. I wouldn't be here anymore. Yeah, what's on the bingo card today? I've heard some rumblings about this bingo stuff.
Bingo, if anyone wants to get involved in bingo, which I know a few people did yesterday, reach out to Matt the Matt in the Season 4 discussion, Season 4 tournament discussion channel in the Discord. They will get you a bingo card. I had one yesterday. It was very fun, even if I lost a lot of bingo tiles due to Sponge deciding to not scum choose and do a whole host of other things. So if you want to get involved with that, give Matt a message. I haven't checked mine yet. I'm going to check mine just before the race.
Yep, you still got a little bit of time here before the match starts. So print out your bingo sheets. Make sure you get your clipboard out.
I'm doing bingo, so I'm already prepped. This British person has their cider and.
Yeah, I'm already drinking pink, whatever pink is.
Oh, yeah, good old pink. I love me some pink drink.
Yeah, pink's great. Yeah, who do you think is going to win though? Ultimately,
man, I feel bad saying this, but I want What the Hell's to win. I don't know who I think is going to win, but I want What the Hell's to win solely because they've come runner-up twice and 4th in season 3. I think it would be just a really good story for What the Hell's to win it. I've got no personal bias between either of them at all. They're both absolutely terrific people. Love watching them, love talking to them both. But I think it would be an excellent story for What the Hell's to sort of get some redemption in a sense of finally winning a season. Sponge, has put in immense amounts of effort throughout season 3 and 4. But ultimately, I think they've still got a ton of time left in this community. I think it wouldn't surprise me if Sponge went on and won season 5, no matter what that ended up being. But I would personally really like What the Hell's to win.
Yeah, it's not that I want Sponge to win necessarily, and I've already called What the Hell as being the tournament winner a couple months ago. Even being in the 1 seed, all of his matches have been very clean in terms of winning. So really, no question in my mind. I think he's going to win, but. More than that, though, I want to see What the Hell's lose. I want to see what happens when that happens.
That sounds so harsh.
No, it's not a mean-spirited thing. I just I'm really curious how that would affect him going forward in random settings. So, I just want him to come into the him to come into the ring, put his punching gloves on, and do some random settings because I'm tired of him just like not playing at all yet, really at all. So I want to see what he's made of there. But
it's a nice result bias, so I think we've confirmed that. Which is
we're like if he wins, I think he's a little bit less likely to start immediately on that, right? Like he's not going to be as hungry. So I don't know. I want to grow as a player, so I want a very hungry what the hells to come into the ring, more or less, so to speak. So anyway, I guess we'll take some questions from the chat before we begin the commentary for the race, right? We're just a couple minutes out here, 10, 15 minutes.
We've got about 10 minutes left of this before we transition over. I know Yoshi already asked who had the harder path to the finals. I mean, you could argue that it's what the hells just because they had to go through the losers and beat PKR, which is essentially an additional match. But just in terms of winner's bracket, if I was to take that in isolation, has to be Sponge. I think it has to be Sponge that's had the harder route through. They went through Marco. They went through their first match was against Necro, which was incredible. Being the 11th seed, they automatically get some harder matches. Whereas What the Hell starts against number 32, and that's no disservice to them. But ultimately, with Sponge being the lesser seed, they automatically get harder matchups. And I'd say Sponge had the harder route to win as finals. And then, obviously, with What the Hell's having to do losers through PKR, it's technically What the Hell's, but I'd say Sponge.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think Sponge had the harder path. Yeah, it's just Marco, Mario, PKR, and then also just Necro thrown in there just for some spice. So versus Reedrim, Riley, Fana. I mean, that's and Ryu. Like overall, I think based on like kind of the history of the runners, I think Sponge definitely had the harder path. And even just as a player, I don't know. I think What the Hell has been in his limo the whole time, just riding his way to the finals here. So
I mean, Sponge. I can't remember Necro's seeding, but Sponge had to go through seed 7, Marco, seed 3, Mr. Mario, seed 2, PKR, and then seed 1, Hells in Winners. So
yeah, I think just based on that,
as much as seedings can or can't mean things in Rando, it's a very good indication of just how tough their matches were.
Just more on the seeding thing too. I mean, I think season 4 has definitely been more variable for sure in terms of how runners have performed. So seeing some of the most consistent finishers finish in the top couple of seeds, I think that just adds kind of a lot of weight to that as well.
Millie Moon has asked, who in the top 32 were you rooting for or expected to be in the finals, and was it Sponge, and what the hell's happened from the start? It was definitely What the Hell's happened for me. I actually made some predictions on Challenge, but they never submitted for some reason, and I know it was What the Hell's happened. I think I had Sponge losing to Marco, but then going all the way through losers into the grand finals. So I always had this as the grand finals, but I actually had Marco going... No, actually, I had Mr. Mario going to winners finals, but Sponge taking it through losers. So... yes, this was my predicted finish for the season, but definitely not how I predicted it to happen.
Yeah, if anyone looks at my tournament prediction on Challenge, you can go look it up there. But I called when the bracket was revealed that winners final was going to be Sponge and What the Hells, and then grand finals was just going to be Sponge and What the Hells. So I feel really vindicated in how big brain I can be with my predictions here for season 4. But the same time, I don't know. I said What the Hell's going to win today, but I think it's past like 6 matches in the tournament have all been very, very close coin flips. It's been like 51-49, 55-45, that kind of a thing for all the matchups here near the end of the bracket. So I don't know. I think it could go either way. I would love to be proven wrong, but at the same time, I think I've been kind of rooting for What the Hell's the whole time.
That's fair. A couple of other quick questions. We have Sliver Striker. I'm not sure if I'm reading that right. Where do you want the light arrows to be? I don't know. Where do you want the light arrows to be, Emo?
I want him to be on big pose, but have big pose be 10 and not 1. That's what I want. That's all I want for season 5. Why can't I get that? Every seed can just be 10 po light arrows. Why not? Why not?
Okay.
Is that too bad?
I mean, it's not too bad for a RSL, but in terms of what's actually possible in this race,
I'm just saying. I had to do 9 pose only like less than a month ago, and it was a spiritual experience. Just try it. Don't knock it until you try it. It's really wonderful, actually. And it was with one bottle as well.
I would like light arrows to be on the Shadow Trial second, because it's always nice seeing whether that's even possible to get. And the scramble of, oh my god, it's in Gavin's castle, so it's probably in Light Trial, right? Whereas in reality, it's just on a Shadow Trial second. That'd be pretty good.
That's where I want to be. But, nonsensical locations aside, I want light arrows to be on bongo. I want that drum playing motherfucker to have light arrows.
Of course, we're knowing season 4 is probably just going to be on Darklink, but I guess so.
I don't want to talk about water anymore. Okay. Why is that a dungeon? Why is that a dungeon?
It's fine. We won't make Emo angry. I promise. Okay, just a few minutes left. So I guess last couple of questions before we just do a bit of an outro. I did see another question.
Bunny hood shenanigans. Are we going to see that?
Say that. We'll say again.
Bunny hood shenanigans.
Bunny hood shenanigans. No. I
don't think we're going to see it either. I don't think we're going to see that either. But I'd be kind of shocked. I want to see an agreement for Bunny Hood. They just both go get that.
Yeah, I don't think Bunny Hood's going to happen unless PKR made it. There was going to be no Bunny Hood in the grand finals, I think, in my opinion. So, unfortunately, I'm not going to see that. I don't think.
Has it been your favorite season to watch so far for Randomizer?
That's a great question before. Who asked that question?
Righteous Cataclysm.
Tough one. Probably season. It's a really tough one between season 3 and season 4. I've loved season 4 just because of how different it's been and how way more interesting it's been to watch, especially the first sort of half an hour of every seed. But it's really difficult to say that I've enjoyed anything more than the Marco Bono incredible series of games from season 3, which was just the best ending to a tournament I think there will ever be. So it's tough. I'd say season 4 overall.
So far.
Season 3 highlights were incredible, and I don't think that's ever going to get beaten.
Yeah, I think it's tough to say for sure. I mean, I think there's a lot of great things about season 2 even as well. Just the real consistency in finishes and kind of the supremacy of just like skill almost. Like top 5 runners are basically untouchable, and then if you can get a match between the two of them, like kind of like you're saying, like Bono, Marco in season 3, it was like kind of the pinnacle of that tournament. So I think we're going to see something similar here today even. I mean, it could also just be a blowout. You see I mean, you have all these runners that are so close in skill. I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot for it to be either really close or really far apart. And there's not a whole lot in between a lot of the time. So I think season 4 for me has been really cool to watch just because of the settings. But yeah, I think season 3 was probably a little bit more enjoyable for me, at least.
All right. I think we better wrap up, We've got almost 5 minutes. So bow us out.
Use the restroom. We've been sitting here for 90 minutes or so, talking with chat, being live for our first live episode of the podcast. Shout outs to everyone watching, being here for the pre-show hype for this last tournament match. We're going to be joined by Yoshi Kiana in just a couple minutes to be commentating this match. So hang tight, everyone. We'll be starting shortly.
Big thanks to Trez for making this happen. Of course, big thanks to Winnie. Big thanks to Ronan Recordings, who are part of the Gossip Stone podcast. Hopefully, you can catch us on later episodes and catch up with our older episodes that can be found on the website. Big thanks to everyone for joining us, and I can't wait for the finals. We're about 5 minutes away. Get your hypes in chat. I think we're going to just transition to just a quick boot up screen, and then we're going to get going. So, thank you very much.
All right, friends. So thank you so much to Emo and to Jim for this amazing episode of the podcast. As Jim just said, and I couldn't agree more, we're gonna go over to the intro screen, to a pause screen for a quick minute, and then gonna be back with the hype, with action. Be right back.